Cancer cells. Today's topic is about the structure of the cancer cell and what are the blockers to stop it from building, from constructing itself, from growing and from moving. So there's different approaches with cancer. I have done separate videos with it. There's a series which has got 7 steps. One of them includes sugar, how to stop feeding the sugar to cancer cells, how to block it. That's one of them. There's other ones which is on movement, on the immune system. So there's various approaches. This is one of the approaches of the 7 steps. So a cancer cell has a structure. So now if you want to combat and fight cancer, you have to find a way of actually preventing it from actually being made. In other words, what is the structure made up of? So we're going to look at the external part of the cell, the internal part of the cell. So anything that you can block from the manufacturing of the cancer cell and for it to propagate and live, you're having a better chance of actually conquering it. So this is what it's about. So I'm Alan Warnitz. I'm a nutrition expert. I help people restore their health using nutrition. So there are 7 parts of the structure which I'm going to go over: the cell membrane, the cytoskeleton, which is the outside and the internal structures, the energy production, the DNA and RNA synthesis. This is where the coding happens, the genes, cell signaling. There's also signals. There are signals that the cells receives for it to grow. So how do you also interfere with that? Ketones. So when the body's got no sugar, no glucose, and none of the fuels, and it's left with only fat burning, fat makes ketones. Cancer uses ketones, and ketones also makes another part of the structure. So how do you block that? And then how do you expose the cell? Because the cell has got a polarity which actually prevents the immune systems from attacking it. So how do you remove the coating of that cell so that the immune system can come and attack it and get rid of it? So there's all these things involved. Cancer is a very intelligent form of cell. So once you know how it actually operates, you can actually go and do something about it. So on the cell membrane, the cell is made of lipids, cholesterol and protein. Lipids is a form of oil. Cholesterol is oil and protein. So that's how the cell membrane is made. So now, how do you block the lipids? Cholesterol, you can block it with statins, but it's something you can do. How you block lipids? With omega-3. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish, flaxseed oils. You get your omega-3, it inhibits lipid synthesis. So it inhibits the manufacturing of the lipids, of the cell part, which is made of oil. It disrupts the membrane integrity. So you've got a membrane, you've got a surface, it actually breaks it up. So omega-3, a very important supplement to take, which you get from fish, from flaxseed oil, and there's other sources of omega-3. And number 2, green tea extract. There's EGCG, which inhibits lipid synthesis. So green tea also helps with that. So omega-3 and green tea helps with interfering with the cell membrane. Cytoskeleton, cyto is cell, the skeleton, and the internal structures, which is nucleotides for DNA replication, the nucleus, the inside part of the cell. So you can use curcumin, which actually interferes with cell division, because you need the DNA will actually create cell division, because that's the coding to divide the cell. So curcumin from turmeric interferes with that cell multiplication. And quercetin, which you also find from onions, it induces apoptosis. Apoptosis means it's where the cell, when the cell is about to die, or it's supposed to die, it dies. What cancer does, cancer actually reverses that. It actually prevents cells from dying. So it actually stops apoptosis. So if you take quercetin, it induces it. It actually makes the cell die, because that's what it's supposed to do. It's gone through its lifespan. Number 3, energy production, glycosis. Glycosis is a form of usage of glucose. Even when there's no oxygen, cancer cells uses a form called glycosis. Glyco means glycogen, which is sugar, and osis is the manufacturing of it or the processing of it. It converts it into energy. So even without oxygen, it will do that. So how do you block the energy production of this? I've done a more extensive video on that as well, but I'm just summarizing it here. So berberine, which is a herb you find in golden seal, it inhibits glucose intake. So berberine will stop the glucose entering the cell. So if you stop the fuel happening, going into the cell, it starves it. And also green tea, as we say, green tea inhibits lipid synthesis. It also inhibits enzymes for glycosis and glutaminolysis, because cancer cells uses glutamine as well, which is an amino acid for energy. So green tea has got a very effective way of doing that. So green tea already is doing 2 separate actions here with the lipid and with energy production. Number 4, DNA and RNA synthesis. So the cells produces new DNA from RNA. So how do you stop the body from making it? Because that's the code that will make new cancer cells. The cancer cell needs a code. And how do you stop that? Resveratrol will decrease the nucleotide availability. So resveratrol, which you find from grapes and berries, will stop the availability of the nucleotides for the DNA and RNA to be manufactured. So you don't have new cells being made. Sulforaphane, which you find in broccoli sprouts, it affects the gene expression and cell cycle regeneration. So if you take sulforaphane, it affects the synthesis of the DNA. Number 5, cell signaling and proliferation. The cells, it needs signals. It needs signals for multiplication, it needs signals for growing, it needs signals for moving. So there are certain growth factors. For example, estrogen is a growth factor. When there's estrogen dominance, the cells actually are given a signal to start growing. If there's less estrogen, there's no signals for growth. And on the cells, you've got receptors. So you've got to interfere with the estrogen, with the growth factors and the receptors, so that the signaling, so when any signals that come does not actually affect the cell and doesn't make the cell grow. So how do you affect that? It's with garlic extract. In garlic extract, there's a compound called allicin. It reduces the growth and the signal reception. So it interferes with the reception of the signals. Number 6, ketones. When you starve the cancer cell from glucose, you've starved it from glutamine, you've starved it from arginine. These are 3 fuel sources which I'll go over in detail in other videos. The cancer cell is left with ketones. So what it does, the body starts making with the growth factors and the receptors, so that the signaling, so when any signals that come does not actually affect the cell and doesn't make the cell grow. So how do you affect that? It's with garlic extract. In garlic extract, there's a compound called allicin. It reduces the growth and the signal reception. So it interferes with the reception of the signals. Number 6, ketones. When you starve the cancer cell from glucose, you've starved it from glutamine, you've starved it from arginine. These are 3 fuel sources which I'll go over in detail in other videos. The cancer cell is left with ketones. So what it does, the body starts making ketones from fat. So what happens is it converts the ketones with using an enzyme called the Scott enzyme into acetyl coenzyme, CoA. So that is another substance which is a building block for the synthesis of fatty acids in new cell membranes. So ketones go to this acetyl and turns into energy. So now you need to stop this process. It's called a metabolic pathway. So now you use there's a Scott enzyme that comes here. So as long as there's a Scott enzyme, that process happens and then it turns into energy. So cancer cells finds another form of energy, but at the same time it also needs to manufacture its structure. So it uses acetyl CoA. So what can you do to block that enzyme? It's called the Scott inhibitors. So there's a few supplements you can take which actually inhibit the Scott, which actually blocks this metabolic pathway. So it's alpha lipoic acid. You can take on day 1 0.4 grams, into the 3rd week 1.8 gram. Garnicia 1.2 grams to 3 grams over 3 weeks. Red algae 8 grams. Black seed oil 500 milligrams 2 times a day. Garlic, we spoke about garlic here, which actually is the fatty acids in new cell membranes. So ketones go to this acetyl and turns into energy. So now you need to stop this process. It's called a metabolic pathway. So now you use there's a Scott enzyme that comes here. So as long as there's a Scott enzyme, that process happens and then it turns into energy. So cancer cells finds another form of energy, but at the same time it also needs to manufacture its structure. So it uses acetyl CoA. So what can you do to block that enzyme? It's called the Scott inhibitors. So there's a few supplements you can take which actually inhibit the Scott, which actually blocks this metabolic pathway. So it's alpha lipoic acid. You can take on day 1 0.4 grams, into the 3rd week 1.8 gram. Garnicia 1.2 grams to 3 grams over 3 weeks. Red algae 8 grams. Black seed oil 500 milligrams 2 times a day. Garlic, we spoke about garlic here, which actually affects cell signaling. It affects also this process as well. 500 milligrams 4 times a day. Quercetin, we spoke about quercetin as well, which actually helps with DNA replication. It stops it and also does this as well. green tea, we spoke about green tea once here, second time, green tea for cell membrane and green tea for energy production. And bromelain, which is an enzyme, these are help with inhibiting that process. And then cell exposure. Cancer cells is very intelligent as well. It's got a coating which actually has got the same polarity as the immune system. So when the immune system comes, it doesn't detect it, it actually gets repelled because there's similar polarities. Either it's two positives or two negatives. So what you need to do is you need to expose that. So one way of actually exposing the cells is to have pancreatic enzymes. It's enzymes from the pancreas. If you take it on its own, it will go and digest that protein coating. So now it exposes the protein, it exposes the cancer cell for the immune system to attack it. And next thing you can do is you take vitamin B17, which is Litron, which you find from apricot pips, 10 to 20 apricot pips a day. That vitamin B17 has got the capacity to go and attack the cancer cell and actually make it and get rid of it. And it also helps with the immune system to come and get rid of it. So there you go. So these are the different blockers that actually blocks the structure of the cell. So this is a natural way of doing it so that the cancer cell has got less chances of actually multiplying and growing because all of this, everything that is needed for it to build is actually blocked. So what I do is I offer a 30-minute free consultation. You can contact me on the link. The link is provided. You click on the link and we can meet for 30 minutes. It's free. I go over your health issues. I give you a map and a direction and steps because this might look confusing. There's so many steps in there. Where do you start? This is where my coaching comes in. I help you find the right way, where to start, what you're doing, where you're at, and what you can take to get you free of cancer. If you know somebody who's got cancer, please share this and help them also actually get free of cancer. I thank you for listening. If you enjoyed what you read, what you watched here, you can actually subscribe to my channel because I'm going to be giving more and more information on this and continue with the series there and help you find ways and find natural ways of healing, which I help in. And you can watch my channel as well to see what else I've got to offer. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to meeting you and working with you.